Hi class, this is Bill Berry with the third and maybe final video on the bakery project that we started to illustrate functions. We've gotten a long way. We implemented the call hierarchy, figured out how the data flowed, we implemented them as parameters and returns, we did all the calculations, and really all that's left is to make our output pretty. We want it to look something like this when we're done, and right now we have something really boring where we've just sort of thrown the thing out there. So let's see if we can fix that part right now and do it in one video and learn some nice tricks along the way. Well, first of all, we know that we're going to have, we're going to have some stuff printed. Let's start with the headers, right? We're going to print, first of all, a line of stars. Now, I'm going to do that a couple of times, but I could just start with something like this. I'm going to take a star and multiply it, quote, by 60, right? I'm going to multiply that, so that's going to print 60 stars. So I know I'm going to do that at the top, and I know I'm going to do that at the bottom of the order, so that's fine. I could pull that out and make a separate function like display stars. I think that's a good idea. We could make this 60 a constant somewhere because you may decide 60 is too many, and rather than changing more than one line of code, you could just change the 60 at the top. So, those are good things to think about. And then we know we want to print the name of the company, so we're going to say Beth's. Remember, if you want an apostrophe, you have to surround the whole thing with quotes. You have to escape it, or you put two apostrophes. Bakery, order summary, right? So this part's easy, no big deal there. Now, the first thing that we want to do is that we want to have this little report, right? We want to have item, count, and price, and then we want to have under it some underlines, and then we want to have the items. So I'm going to just do a kind of silly start to it to kind of see, what to do. I'm just going to first start, I'm going to print item, and then I'm going to do count, and then I'm going to do price, right? I know I'm going to do those. So for the moment, I can just start and be, kind of blind in this if I want to be kind of silly. I can say, okay, the item is going to be pies. I know I need to put, oops, I forgot to enroll that. And I know I also going to want to put some underlines, so I could do that. Some hyphens. So I'm just going to do that. I'm just making this stuff up as I go, right? Now, I'm not being very mathematical or precise about it, but you'll see the point in a minute. And then we need to do the number of pies, and then we need to do the pie price, right? So I need to do pies, num pies, that's great. Then I'm going to do cakes, and then I'm going to say number of cakes, and I'm going to say the cake price. Right, so that's going to take care of a couple of items, and then let's just for fun, let's stop and see how we're doing at this point. Let's run the thing, 5 pies, 6 cakes. All right, well, it doesn't look great. I have the right data, but it looks kind of ugly, so we definitely have some work to do here. But let's get the basic data in there, and then we'll figure out how to make it prettier, because there's definitely an easier way to do that. Okay, then here I want another one of these. It looks kind of like that. And then again, based on my picture, I want to then say subtotal. So how am I going to do that? Well, it actually, that's fine. It says subtotal there. And then I don't have any number. Notice I have no number in the count column. I'm just going to skip over. So I'm going to say, wow, I'm going to just do nothing, I guess, there. And then I'm going to do the same thing with tax. I'm going to get tax. And I'm going to print a nothing, and then I'm going to print the tax, and the total, and a nothing, and then I'm going to print the total, then I'm going to print the star. I'm going to run this. It's not going to be pretty, but I just want you to see that the data is all there. Okay, now it's ugly. Now there are a lot of things that we can do. One of the things to realize is this little empty thing that I'm putting here is intentional. Why? Because I want there to be 3 of everythings, right? There's 3 headers, there's 3 underscores, there's 3 of these or 3 of these, because if I align all the stuff in each column, then I know that they're all going to line up together. Now, the first thing that I'm going to notice is that over here in this first column, the easiest way to make sure all this stuff is lined up is to make sure that the strings are the same length. So I'm going to do something like this, number of pies, and I'm going to say number of cakes, and then watch what I do with the rest. Let me just type them in. right? Number of cakes, there we go. All right, so one of the things that I can do that guarantees that these things align, because we are working with monospaced fonts, right? All the characters take up the same space when we have output from these things. So if I do this, and I put these quotes in alignment with all the other quotes, right, in a line, I know that I am going to get stuff that lines up, right? Seems a little silly, but it is very easy to do, and it is very true. If these start quotes line up right here and the end quotes line up right here, you are guaranteed to get alignment. By the way, I'm going to put a \n. Hopefully you know what that does. That's going to put an extra line return in there to give me a space without putting an extra print line, which just takes up more code. So I'm going to do the same thing with all of these things, right? Now, I actually want subtotal to be over to the right. You notice how it's right aligned? You could do that a different way, but here's a sort of, cheater way to do it. It's fine. So as long as you're all in these nice little literals, string literals, it's very easy to do something like this and just line the whole thing up. So that guarantees column 1 is taken care of. Now you'll notice here there's another line over here, so I do want to put that in before I forget. I'm going to do this, and notice here I don't want the line in this part. So I'm just going to put spaces, 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 and then do I want a line there? Nope, I don't want the line in the next part. So I'm just going to put some more spaces, and then over here, yes. Okay, so in this middle part now I'm going to do the same thing, right? I'm going to make sure that all of these things line up just the same. Line, 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 and line, 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 line. Okay? Now, I don't really like this idea, but for the moment, let's just leave it. You can do something like this to cause the spacing to work. But the problem is this going to match these? Well, no, it's really not. So this isn't really ideal. We're not going down the right road on this second column. What we really want to do is that we want to make sure that the number of pies and the number of cakes are going to be displayed formatted so that they are always right aligned and take up the same amount of space. So what we really want here is to say something like format the number of pies, and I want you to use a format like, in this case I'm going to say 5d. 5 says I want it to always take up a minimum of 5 spaces, and d says this is digits, right? This is an integer. So I can do this and make it 5d. Now to make that work with pies and cakes is really straightforward, right? I do the same thing here with number of cakes, and I do 5d, right? So I know that these two things are going to be perfectly aligned. Now, when it comes to these guys, I can either count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know those things are going to line up if I force them to be 5, but I can also do formatting on those. So if you want to, you can do something like this. It may seem silly, but for consistency, watch what can happen here. Right? I can put these in and deal with them the same exact way as I did with the others. Let me fix this up real quick. Do this, comma, and then I'm going to do 5s. Notice these are 5s's because these are strings. They're not digits. They're not integers. So I'll fix those all up real quick. So you'll see that for the spacers, I didn't even have to put 5 spaces. I just made sure that the 5s were all the same. So regardless of whether it's 5s or 5d, we know these are going to align. Now, if we've made strings here that are too long, remember that can always push things out. So we'd want to remember that this 5 needs to be at least as big as any of these. But that makes it really simple, because if we want a little more space, we just come and change all the 5s to 6s, right? It's very easy, and they're all aligned and they all look the same, so it's actually very easy to tell what the alignment's going to be. And because I've put spaces in here between the commas, I actually see everything as extremely parallel. So that actually works really, really great. Now, if we run the code at this point, let me do this, and we do 5 and 6, and we'll see what the result is. That looks pretty good, but this is now kind of ugly, right? The price needs to be rounded, and we could probably use some dollar signs. Like, we need a little bit of work here. So let's figure out what to do there. Well, let's think about how big these things could be. So if we want to format the pie price, that's great. But what is the format specifier going to be? Well, let's say that it's not unusual for a bakery to have a wedding order that gets into the thousands of dollars, and we probably want commas in there, right, to be pretty. So we need, let's say for the thousands, that's 4 digits, and then there's the decimal, that's 5, 6, 7 for the 2 digits after, and then for a comma, that's 8. So I probably want to have 8.2f. And I want the comma in there too. So I really want this to be 8 comma 0.2f. That says 8 total minimum, put commas if necessary, use the decimal point, put 2 after, and this is a floating point number. So you see that my format is going to take care of making sure that these things align. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the cake price, right? 8 comma 0.2f close. Okay, then I'm going to align these things. Now guess what I'm going to do on these things to make sure that everything works great too. I'm going to say, just like I did before, I'm going to take price and I'm going to say I want this to be 8s, right? And that's going to end that whole thing, which I verify, right? So let me fix those up real quick. So you'll notice, again, because these are all S's, they are going to be perfectly aligned, right? So that's a great way to do it. And you'll notice that visually you can tell these all align because they're the same width, right? If the apostrophes align, these are going to align. These are all the same because they're all 5s. These are all the same because they're all 8s. You know this stuff is going to line up and you don't even have to really look, right? Now the question is, do we want this to be bigger? You know, if that's 8 spaces, do these probably need to be a little bigger? Maybe. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do maybe 2 more. All right, let's do 6, 7 on these guys. Oops. All right, and then here, same thing. All right, now we're going to have one other thing. I'm going to then go fix up my alignment because it drives me crazy. I want these to look so visually parallel so that it's extremely clear to the reader how these things are going to align, right? So let's just fix that up. There we go. Perfect. Now let's go see. There's one more little trick here that we have yet to learn. Here's my how many pies. Let's do 20 and 30. Okay, so we have a couple of things we want to do. Maybe we want to put a dollar sign, but notice how price and these guys, we probably want them to be right aligned, and the underscores or the hyphens, we want them to be right aligned instead of left aligned. Well, there's a really easy way to do this. Watch how easy it is. And that is, I simply say on all of the ones I want to right align, I put one of those guys. And that says right align. Now, how in the world would I know that? Well, you're going to go to help. You're going to go to, oops, not IDLE help. You're going to go to the Python docs. We're going to put that in the corner. You're going to say format. You're going to look up in strings where it starts talking about formats, and you're going to look down, and somewhere here this talks about formatting, and then somewhere here you're going to see that there is a let's see, where is this? Formatter class, formatter class. If you poke around a little bit, you're going to find the place where it starts talking about format specification language. So play around in here a little bit, and I'm trying to find a good place where that's easy to find. Formatter class, is that where it is? Back, formatter. Gosh, there's an easy way to find it here, and I'm not seeing it. But you'll find a link to this, the format specifiers and the format specification language. And once you do, you can easily look that up. I don't know why I'm not seeing that so easily. I think it doesn't like the width that I'm using here. Anyway, here it is, format string syntax. All right, so go down a little bit and it starts getting into format string syntax, and there you go. So it's really, there's a million things you can do with this, and I can't go into all of it because it goes on and on and on and on, but that's where you can find these little tricks like right aligning. All right, so now let's run it one more time. 20 pies, 30 cakes. Our order looks pretty darn good. Now to put a dollar sign is just a hard-coded thing. It's not in the format specifier, but you can certainly put another column here and just put a dollar sign, all right? So I could simply here do the following. So in all the prices, I put this on all the columns where there's nothing, right, where I don't need a dollar sign, and on the ones where I do, I just do this. Right, so that would certainly be an easy way to do this. That doesn't get one, that does, etc. All right, so that's not pretty and it's not floating, but I think you'll see it works. All right. The only other thing that I think we could do is we might want to put a little spacer in between these columns. And if so, you can define something at the top. Here's just an idea to get you thinking. You could have something like a column spacer. And I set that equal to, 1 space times 3. Right, so I get 3 spaces out of the deal, and then in between each column I just put that column spacer variable, so that also gets printed. You may also want to come to the end and say separator equals quote quote, right, apostrophe apostrophe empty, so that it doesn't put extra spaces that are causing you trouble, so you can tighten it up a little bit. But these are some ways that you can make your output look great. And again, when you look down these columns, because of the way that we've aligned the code and because of the way that we've used 55555 and 88888, you know that they're going to line up. They're going to take the same amount of space, and this is extremely clear to read, and you can tell when you read it what it's going to look like when you print it, which is exactly what you want. So I think we're going to stop there. There's always more ideas to think about, but I think we've thought about enough in these couple videos. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of how one can go through start to finish and take an idea that we had here of this little bakery order, through the hierarchy, through the flow of data, through the implementation, and then printing out this nice little report and using formatting. That's a lot of good stuff that you'll need going forward, so hopefully that's useful for you to be able to see it. That takes us to the end of this video series, and thanks for watching.